Well, we do hope Ambassador Abdullahi Omake is back. He's the Executive Director of Savannah Institute for Democracy, Diplomacy and Development. He's with us live from our Abuja studios, and I do hope, well, Ambassador Omake, well, good to have you join us, and we would love to hear your take on these preparations by INEC as well as the electorates in these states. Maybe I'll take that again, Ambassador Omake. Can you hear me now? Well, it does happen sometimes. Well, it's still... What did you say? Conspiracy of the technology.
It's a media devil. Like
so we're back to the studios here in Lagos. Very quickly, we're looking at some of these issues and looking at preparations. I'd like to come back to you, Barrister Ugumadu. Yes. We were looking at a couple of other issues before I stop you there. Awareness is one key thing here, and I'm quite sure that is what Dr. Afolabi had also noticed when she said, well, the preparations have already reached some kind of feverish pitch, and we're trying to look at what the electorates will be looking to get on that day. Well, let's go back to the issue of logistics. This is one sore area that can get any electorate so agitated.
I'm happy you mentioned, you have your fingers on that. Logistics, communication and coordination, and well, the general ability of INEC to also manage the enthusiasm of the electorate. Now let's start with logistics. You will find that no matter how well-intentioned INEC itself is regarding the conduct of the election, if they don't get right the question of logistics, it will seem as though they were not ready. And I say this because across board there were clear cases of late arrival, and in some cases, the absence of INEC officers. That became a huge challenge, one that left the electorate in a very serious state of ambivalence. Some thought, well, this might not happen. But the graphic picture painted by that, and the unfortunate aspect of it, is that that election of 28 had to spill over to 29th, the Sunday. I am aware of many people who voted late into the night. In short, we're in this studio overlooking the polling booth somewhere close to this place as late as 9:30 p.m. That's not too good for the agents, for those who have waited since 7 a.m. and so on and so forth. Now, but I think that gradually it is work in progress. And if you grant me the indulgence, I will say that they are already, heroes of this exercise already. Even INEC himself, that came out with both the PVC and the reader's card as the final. Indeed, I listened to Linda Greenfield, the Assistant Secretary of State for Africa, when he said, look, wait a minute, this is one aspect of this exercise that we even need to copy. That in their own states, in the United States, theirs is not as sophisticated and fraud-proof such as this. That all you needed to do was come with your driving license, and then the whole thing is done. But that if a body had come up with such mechanisms to ensure that fraudulent electoral frauds is not easily perpetrated, then it stands out as one commendable aspect of this exercise. That much was also said by the United States ambassador to Nigeria. And if you ask me, you will rate the Nigerian people topmost as heroes of this whole exercise, given their enthusiasm, their determination, not just to participate, but to own the process. Then even the security agencies performed creditably well this time around in trying to, stand in the balance. There were not much cases of brutality, harassment, and so on and so forth. INEC itself, in spite of all the tensions of those moments, the bashing and all that, maintained some comportment and stability that reinforced the confidence of the people that this was a transparent process. Again, I must emphasize that the behavior of the president himself, not just at the point of accreditation, but even in conceding victory at the point that he did, doused the tension to the shock of the entire world. No less the opposition that was provided by Buhari and his party. Because But for that, we won't be talking of election. It won't be the contest that we have witnessed the way.
Would you say that we've ruined the mood of that peace accord before these elections? This is for you, Dr.
Well,
Obiora.
I think that the peace accord was quite significant. They are quite significant if you look at where we're coming from. In 2007, we didn't do much of that in terms of people signing and all that. I think our context actually led to people coming up with peace accords for people to sign. And when people come up to sign peace accord, it's not about themselves as the candidates alone. They are signing for themselves and also on behalf of their supporters, saying that I will ensure that I make sure that my supporters are orderly during the election period. They're also signing on behalf of their political party. And these are very critical stakeholders that determine whether there will be violence during the election or not. So, and if we look at from places where we borrowed this from, Sierra Leone, Liberia, it's also because of the context which led them to discussions around peace accords. So while legally it might look like something that is not binding, but I think it's gentlemanly for someone to stand in front of people to say, I'm signing to ensure that there will be peace during this election. It's like a first test that you can use to judge you as a candidate who is putting yourself forward, to support the state or to support Nigeria. So
some people will say that was
important,
fostered, sorry to interrupt you, but some people will say that was fostered because they saw that the process was largely transparent, even though we've seen some complaints, localized complaints about the local elections, for instance, the National Assembly elections in sub-states. We've seen complaints about the results and the outcome of what happened there. With INEC trying to address some of these complaints, do you think that if they still feel that these complaints weren't addressed fully, they will still be willing to accept defeat or accept victory, whichever way it goes?
I was reading in the papers particularly about Rivers State. As of today, the Rivers State governor is still saying that people should not go to the polls if they don't. They should not vote if they don't see the result sheet. And I think that goes back to INEC. I listened to the Lagos State representative of INEC, already speaking to people, also admitting that there were some errors on the 11th of April, on the 28th of March. That, of course, they had about 350 polling units, elections on Sunday in about 350 polling units, and they had about 90 polling units from Lagos State, which to a large extent made us to understand that Lagos was particularly a bad case. In actual fact, I think they had more than 90. They had to stop at 90. The fact that they also came back to say, yes, we have admitted we had some problems. We had problems with party agents. We had problems with transportation of sensitive materials. We had problems with card readers. Now what we are going to do is to ensure that we are going to ensure that we have about 3 backups in each polling unit so that if one is not working, maybe the other 2 or 3 will be able to work. Show to a large extent that they are already moving towards ensuring that tomorrow's election is free and fair.
Well, if you look at what some have also adjudged to be the main crux of the peace, which Barrister Ogumade has just reminded us, it will mean that we already have an example set for states, especially contending states. If you look at those other states that the NHRC, Abia, Benue, Kaduna, Bauchi, Ekiti, Lagos, Imo, Rivers, and some are already saying that, well, it seems as if Akwa Ibom has also been added to all of that mix. How can they, you did say, well, you try to look at them, that's Barrister Ogumade, from two stream as a legal practitioner, which you would say didn't give any kind of bite or meaning or legality to that particular document. But again, how can we make them more honorable, speaking as honorable Nigerians? Let's start with you, Captain Aliyu.
Well, basically, bringing about honor and honorable Nigerians, for me, is a very simple function of exemplitude. Exemplitude can best be gauged using a very recent example that is still fresh in our minds. Look at the conduct of our president when elections were announced. That's exemplitude. Okay? Exemplitude through the electoral process on a broad base from what you said and even beyond is another example on logistics. Timelines. Timelines must be fixed. Timelines are fixed and communication lines are also fixed, so that if you are not getting a feedback, you can do a follow-up. There must be a time at which X polling officer must have gotten to A, B polling station. And there must be a time by which he must have called to tell his REC that he is on location. And even then, you would have done a time budget allocation to say time plus 15 minutes. If he hasn't called, I should be calling to find out why he hasn't called.
That's right.
And if he's telling me that he hasn't called because he's not there on my time budget, I should also have 1 hour to play with to see what can be done. That is a plan B. So if we want to actually get things done properly and want to ensure that people, because if you don't get the logistics aspect of it, then people will vote into Sunday, into Monday. There will be backlogs.
That takes us to the conduct of the elections itself, because that time plan you're talking about,
Yes.
I think INEC already mentioned it.
Yes.
Whether or not they like it, the card readers must be deployed in all the elections, no manual voting. And they are also looking at a time plan. So some people are suggesting 12 o'clock. That if by 12 they don't see the people at the polls, the INEC officials, perhaps they should know that the elections are going to take place the following day. Is that a wise plan?
For the people, it is wise. But for the man at INEC, it has to be the reverse. If I had to do something with you and you were part of the guests, you're going to plan forward. I, the host, am going to plan backwards. What do I mean by backwards? If elections were to end by, say, 5 in the evening, I will start planning backward. How much time do I get to the location? I take it out of that time. How much time do I need to deploy the equipment? I take it out of that time. How much time do I need for contingency? You keep taking it out. So you have to plan from end time to beginning time. But if you sit from the beginning and start planning forwards, you're not going to really get the gist of it. So it's about time management, and this time management can bring you to your timelines and also what I can call your time budget allocations for each particular phase of the election process.
Right, we'll come back and explore more on that possibility of having INEC to brace up and surmount the logistics problem. When Nigeria 2015 takes a moment, we'll return shortly.